All birthdays are special, but the 70th is supposed to be extra special. So off we went to Land Between the Lakes in western Kentucky for my extra special birthday. 3 nights, 4 days of mountain biking, and as much additional frivolity as my 70-year-old self could handle. My first mountain bike destination was Livingston County Trail System, just north of Land Between the Lakes. Some of the trails are right next to I-24. I'd ridden here 2 years earlier for my birthday, but I got rained out before I had a chance to explore it all. I didn't get to explore it all this time either. Of the several miles of trail, only a few miles had seen enough use that the fallen leaves were sufficiently compressed for me to follow the trail. If I were a local, I'd have blissfully ridden from memory, as I do back home, but I'm not, so I didn't. I started from a different spot, an improved parking area that I think was not there 2 years earlier, instead of up front by the pump track. Between the 2 visits, I've ridden most, if not all, of the Livingston County trails. It's all been great fun, and the experience this time corrected an error in my thinking, which I'll explain in a minute. The next day, I rode the canal loop from the North Welcome Center within LBL. I rode it counterclockwise, which is the preferred direction. The front half, which runs alongside Lake Barkley for much of the ride, is quite nice and mellow. It's scenic and flowy and well maintained. Then there's a tricky little climb, full of rocks and roots, that brings the trail under the main road through LBL, the Woodlands Trace, which is also Kentucky Route 453. It marks the entry into the back half of the canal loop, the part that runs along Kentucky Lake. This site is much rougher. Much of it is poorly designed, with many fall line segments, and poorly maintained. One notable piece of maintenance was a combination of cleanup and rerouting that kept the trail open through an area damaged by tornadoes on December 10, 2021. An EF4 and an EF3 struck that day and damaged some 7,000 acres of land between the lakes. The north-south trail is still closed as cleanup continues. There is a detour, but the detour is unappealing and the north-south trail itself isn't that much fun, so I skipped it on this trip. The morning of my birthday, I rode the Bo Beckett Memorial Trail, which is just below Kentucky Dam Village State Resort Park on the north end of Kentucky Lake. I also rode this counterclockwise. Here again, the trail was hard to read through the leaves, and I had to get off the bike a few times and recon the area on foot to find the trail. The trail is tight, twisty, has minimal elevation gain, and would hardly be worth riding were it not for the whoops and G-outs. None is big, but they are plentiful and plenty fun to ride. I'm sure there are 50, maybe 100, and it was the abundance of these little ups and downs that made me rate this as my favorite trail in the area 2 years ago, which is why I saved it for last to ride the morning of my birthday. I realized on this trip I was wrong. Now that I've had a chance to ride more of the Livingston County trails, I rate them as my favorite in this area. Bo Beckett is a close second. Mountain biking wasn't all that got done on this trip. I also rode part of the 11-mile Central Hardwood Scenic Trail, which connects Kentucky Lake with Lake Barkley. The eastern part I rode is paved. The western 3/4 of the trail is compacted stone. My wife and I enjoy cemeteries. Perhaps that sounds odd, but we are captivated by the stories they tell. Nowhere is the tale of humanity more poignantly portrayed than in a cemetery. Land Between the Lakes has more than 270 known cemeteries, from family plots to those associated with community churches. We strolled around Patty's 1880s settlement, which was decorated for Christmas at the time of our early November visit. We had dinner there. I found Patty's years ago, and we've been back several times since. The food and service are both good, and the grounds and shop are worth a visit. It's in the town of Grand Rivers, which for years had little other development. We saw more development on this trip, still not a lot, but more. The Lighthouse Marina in Grand Rivers is a great spot to catch the sunset. It was the first time we'd stayed at Lake Barkley State Resort Park. We've stayed at several state parks in Kentucky and found them to be kind of frumpy, but the personnel are usually wonderful, and Lake Barkley State Resort Park was no exception. The rooms overlook the lake, and there's a sidewalk along the shore where I took a morning walk. There's a fitness center with a large room full of equipment. That equipment is old but appears well maintained. There's room with free weights. There's an indoor pool. The outdoor pool was closed for the season. All of this is free for guests. I don't know how many times we've been to Land Between the Lakes. We're already planning our next visit there. What about you? Have you ever been to Land Between the Lakes? Has this video made you want to go back or go for the first time? Let me know in the comments below. I'm Rich Reese, and I'll see you out there.